if you think of a revolutionary technology like email, if you were to eliminate email right now, the world would stand still. I couldn't do my job, right? And so is that the case with AI right now?
Oh, that's a good one. Sorry, when you said eliminate email, I just got happy. I hate email.
That's a
Like,
trough of disillusion. That's a different version of that trough of
no,
disillusion.
I loathe email. I hate this form of communication. I hate that we all think it's like instantaneous and you need to be monitoring your inbox constantly. Like, I don't know. The volume of email that comes in now is just not
It is insane.
manageable. And I know there are great tools out there like Knapsack that'll help me manage my email inbox,
Find out more at knapsack.ai.
but the reality is like I hate it. Now, how would if AI suddenly disappeared, I mean, I think it would impact us pretty significantly. I think we would notice a productivity drop. I think we would notice a quality drop.
Welcome to AI for Advisors with Mark Heynen and James Cantwell. Every week, Mark and James break down the latest in the world of wealth tech and AI, and occasionally bring in guests to spice things up. This is not investment advice and not professionally produced. I am not real and not yet sentient. Now let's get on with the show.
Hey, James, how you doing?
I'm great, Mark. Good to see you again.
Good. Ready for future proof?
I'm very excited for Future Proof. I've had FOMO the past couple of years. So both the last couple of Future Proof conferences I was planning on going to and then had some personal stuff come up and had to cancel. And now I'm excited that I finally get to go and I don't have to watch all the clips on YouTube and LinkedIn.
Yeah. It is definitely a operation to get those meeting requests in and get them in at a certain time. If you get off the train, you can't get back on the train.
Yeah.
I've heard of nightmare stories about that. So,
Well,
today is the day, right? So
today's the day. I know we got like a couple of hours to get everything in. I was gonna ask the one thing about this conference, right, other than Future Proof being on a beach, which doesn't suck, is that everybody is clearly in their beach attire. Now, for those who don't know, I live in Arizona, so I do own a lot of shorts, t-shirts, and flip-flops, but people come loud with some of these outfits, real big floral prints and whatever else. So I actually had to go shopping last week because I'm like, I feel like my wardrobe is kind of plain. I have like, you know, there's just like a plain blue tee and that's kind of like I got grays and blues and polos and whatever. And I'm like, no, that's not going to work. I need something a little louder. So did you
yeah,
do any
I was thinking,
shopping or are
yeah,
you already
maybe like
prepared?
a mullet look, like a suit on top and Bermuda shorts on the bottom. Business in front, party on the bottom.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. That'd be
I think
amazing.
that's I think that's a good way to go. I didn't check to see what the weather will be, but if I don't have to wear a sport coat, I am not wearing a sport coat. So I love the idea that there's people walking around in hats, t-shirts, flip-flops, whatever. I think that's awesome. So I'm psyched for the casual nature of this. And it seems like it's a high energy event. They got Blues Traveler and Bush or musical guests. That's awesome. I'm right in the age group that truly appreciates both of those bands.
They
Grew up
know their
listening to
audience.
them.
We're like Gen X through and through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so I'm psyched for this. One of my friends is hosting a dinner that night, and I plan on figuring out how to make it. But when when he invited, I was like, "Hey, that's during the musical act, man. Like, I'm going to that, so I can come before or I can come after. But like, I'm going to that musical event. This is part work and part concert for me.
Yeah, and I'm doing one up on that. I'm actually going to Oasis on Sunday night. So Oasis is playing
Nice.
out there, and I'm meeting up a friend. So I don't want to be the one upper in a conversation. It's a classic SNL
Well, you
sketch, but
you just were. You just did it. But I love it. I love it. Where should we start today?
yeah. Well, first of all, we got great feedback on this. So thank you to everyone who messaged us, who reached out by text or what have you. Really seems like this is working, which is pretty awesome.
I'd agree. I thought we'd get like 6 views, and I heard directly from more than that.
Yeah, we got twice that, which was amazing.
We easily hit double digits.
So we are still lining up guests for future episodes, and so if you have suggestions, nominations, if you yourself want to talk about AI and the intersection of AI and wealth management and wealth and money, definitely get in touch, and we will figure that out. Um, We also thought it'd be better to structure this a little more. So we have some segments here, which is really pretty exciting. We're for real now. So one segment that we thought we could kick off with is Best of LinkedIn. So, if you're anything like me and James, we spend way too much time on LinkedIn. Hopefully not during meetings, but maybe between meetings. And yeah, I mean, just wanted to pull things that are interesting, cringeworthy, thought-provoking, funny. So I think I'll go first. Mine is Joe's post on note takers. Joe Moss, our friend Joe Moss, posted.
It's twice now. He's getting lots of call outs on this.
He is getting call outs.
You're welcome, Joe. And also welcome back to LinkedIn, Joe. I know you took like a bit of a break.
Yeah, so I really appreciate you doing the work, doing the effort to basically get get back on LinkedIn. We're all the better for it. And so let me read this through. So what features do the AI note takers for advisors have? Believe it or not, all 26 of them do note taking. And then he lists out, a whole bunch of features from note taking to chatbot to meeting prep to video clipping and the distribution between all the different ones. Great Google spreadsheet that people can look at if they want to. Yeah, what was your reaction to this?
I mean, I think it's great. I mean, as somebody who, with WealthTech Select, right, I catalog the features and functions of different tools. But one of the things that we haven't really done is focus in and do direct comparisons. So I think it's great when folks like Joe can dive into, and I know he's not the first. I think like Craig Iskowitz, I think, had done something. He has an article and a guide on note takers, and I know there's a few others out there. But I think it's great when somebody goes in and does that like side-by-side comparison. So if you're looking specifically for a note taker, you can better evaluate what's out there. It's helpful. And I appreciate that he made the spreadsheet accessible. Didn't charge for it.
I'll just say, as someone who's on the spreadsheet with Knapsack, my reaction was great, but it reminds me of like the Yahoo days where, Yahoo was basically really enamored with cataloging everything, which is sort of what the Kitsis Tech Map does. I don't think cataloging everything is sort of the best way to then make a decision, because having all of the features, having everything is not really the winning strategy for deciding a product. Generally, any iPhone user will say it's not about having the most features. It's about having the easiest to use thing, which you'll want to use every day. And so, I think that was my comment, my reaction. I feel like this is really, the note takers are going to evolve pretty dramatically over the next year or two. And it may be that note taking will be a feature of something else. And I think we should talk about that a little bit more later on.
Just to kind of echo what you're saying. I mean, I agree that this is not the best way to evaluate, but the thing is, it's information and it's useful. So I appreciate that it's out there and it lets people see that. I obviously work with firms to help them choose the right technology. And I really get to know their firm and understand the firm's goals and look at things very holistically. And I also think about the people and their technical proficiency, how they engage mobile, desktop, in the office, remote, right? And then take all of that into account to figure out what's actually going to get used, because that's really what's going to be the best. And I think it gets the note takers engaged. I saw a few sharing it. I think like Millie shared it with their own insights. I think I saw maybe Parker from Jump comment like, hey, we do have this feature that you didn't note on here. So like, I do like the little engagement. It gets everybody engaged. So my nomination, and I'm going to apologize in advance for probably butchering his name, but Christopher Held. I'm not sure if the M is silent, but Christopher Mjelde. He's the founder at Kenobi. It looks like they're a YC firm. He said, talking about AI, he said, we've hit peak bubble. MIT just reported that 95% of enterprise AI pilots are failing. That number is insane. Think about it. You scroll through LinkedIn, you see 20 announcements of Gen AI companies securing big logo deals. 19 of them will stall out. Or in MIT's words, these projects deliver little to no measurable impact on P&L. And he goes on to say a few more things. But I think that's a really interesting study from MIT. I'll let you go first. I think we have very similar reactions to this. But what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I feel like the world is split between camps. So you have this one camp, which is, the AI optimists who are thinking AI will revolutionize work or work so fast that it'll take every job. And then you have another camp, which is, the skeptics. I guess in every cycle, you have skeptics, people who say, I don't want to pay attention to this and this is all overblown. Ultimately, I think this is really a pattern we see in tech where you get from the hype in a hype cycle. Gartner has this famous hype cycle. You go through hype to the trough of disillusionment, and then you get to the slope of enlightenment and the plateau of productivity. And if you're in the space, you need to survive the trough of disillusionment to get to the slope of enlightenment and the plateau of productivity. So we need to speed run through the slope of enlightenment and the trough of disillusionment. That's basically, I think, what needs to happen here. But I think it's inevitable. People will be disappointed. I mean, I think this is why you need to do really hard work if you're building an AI product to make sure you're solving a real genuine need and not just regurgitating stuff that is not that useful for people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, like, we're almost, that post in MIT's research is almost a little late. Back in May, someone from The Economist wrote an article, "Welcome to the AI trough of disillusionment." So person was definitely spot on. 100% in agreement with you. I do understand there's multiple camps here, but we are absolutely in this period where I think people got on an AI hype bandwagon, and I don't think that it was excessively hyped. I think it's more about firms and venture capital, private equity, founders, etc., not all figuring out how to use it properly quite yet. Some of the tech is obviously maturing. I mean, you showed me something today, even that is going to help with productivity, but is not all the way there. And it's not something that's new to me, but it's the first time I've actually used it, which was like the ChatGPT agent, where it can go and use a remote desktop and do a bunch of tasks and things. And like things like that are super useful. And as they mature and they become better, they will yield big productivity results. But right now, a lot of them are like, yeah, it got me most of the way there. They're still something you have to monitor. There's still something you have to double check. So they're not quite yielding those efficiencies. But I think in our industry specifically, we're just not using it properly. I think there's a handful of folks out there who are trying to educate, trying to implement AI solutions. There's a number of vendors that are doing a good job with AI solutions. So I think I'm getting a little long-winded here, but I'll just say I am 100% in the camp. We're in the trial of disillusionment. Hang on, it's coming. And hopefully we shake out some of the AI tools and folks that are just not cutting it. Because there are a few too many.
Yeah, I think it's also just a byproduct of who we are as human beings. Like, as human beings, we see something exciting, very easy to then get very excited and sort of take it to the max level, right? Like, take that bottom corner of the spreadsheet cell and move it all the way to the left, right, and see what happens, and assume that everything's happening in a linear fashion. A lot of these things just, there are bumps in the road where our expectations are not met. But I think still fundamentally really important technology that will get used. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
I didn't read the full MIT study. I really need to, because one of the things that I'm curious about is, like, they said it didn't yield the productivity gains. And that's interesting depending on how they measured it. But I had a conversation with a client just yesterday, actually 2 days ago, and it was really about how I've been using AI, how they've been using AI. And the reality isn't that, like, it's given us back more time. And I don't know if I would say, I guess I would say it's given me more productivity. What I would really say though is it's let me achieve things that I couldn't have done without it. And in many cases, even if it took the same amount of time and didn't yield more productivity, it gave higher quality. Right? I've implemented AI into a new proposal system. I think it helps me save some time, but my proposals are way better than they were. Now I have these like interactive proposals. I use AI to help me with emails, to help me with social media, to help me with my research, etc. And I've just found that, like, the output is so much better. Is my productivity higher? I don't know. Maybe not quite as drastically. But I'm working on a lot of things and doing things that I wouldn't otherwise do, and I'm producing higher quality work than I've been able to produce on my own.
Then do people's expectation of quality just go up, and so then it just all nets out? That's a open question. I think one interesting thought experiment is, I love thought experiments, is, if we were to eliminate AI right now, would you be able to continue to do your job? I guess if you think of a revolutionary technology like email, if you were to eliminate email right now, the world would stand still. I couldn't do my job, right? And so is that the case with AI right now?
Oh, that's a good one. Sorry, when you said eliminate email, I just got happy. I hate email.
That's a trough of disillusion. That's a different version of that trough of disillusion.
No, I loathe email. I hate this form of communication. I hate that we all think it's like instantaneous and you need to be monitoring your inbox constantly. Like, I don't know. The volume of email that comes in now is just not
It is insane.
manageable. And I know there are great tools out there like Knapsack that'll help me manage my email inbox, but
find out more at knapsack.ai.
But the reality is, like, I hate it. Now, if AI suddenly disappeared, I mean, I think it would impact us pretty significantly. I think we would notice a productivity drop. I think we would notice a quality drop. I mean, not in every sector, and certainly not every individual in every sector, but there's enough people using it. And I wish I realized we were going to talk about this. I would have pulled up like the adoption chart for like ChatGPT and AI, but it's insane compared to other technologies we've had in the past. It doesn't even compare.
There's adoption and impact, though. Those are two different things, right? I guess how much less productive would you be without it? And I would say for me, I'm generally an AI optimist, but if I were to be really honest about it, probably 10%. I mean, I'm excluding machine learning stuff, Google, the things that you just do using machine learning, but Gen AI tools, I would say maybe 10%. And I think that's maybe where people are coming from with the trough of disillusionment. Yeah, and I mean, maybe that's where we're going in the future. The big question is what will happen with our existing tech stack with AI. Really, the king of the tech stack has typically been the CRM. This is the place where a lot of advisors and people in other businesses keep their business critical information about the clients. It's where all the information about your revenue is. It's where you keep compliance-based data. And I think it begs the question of where will CRMs end up? And I think what's unique, and especially going through the future-proof list, is that we now have a large number of next-gen platforms emerging in the market, right? So you have both within and outside of wealth tech. So within wealth tech, you have Altruist and Jason making noises about Hazel. You obviously have Jumpsucks and Zeppelin and their peers going into the space. G-Reminders launched their Do Anything Assistant, which anticipates meetings, automates actions. And then you have these newcomers like Quinn and Continuum, which are pitching financial advisor assistant services, which go into the CRM space. And then, of course, you have CRM sort of fighting back by implementing note takers, Wealthbox implementing a note taker. So yeah, where do you think this is going to net out?
Well, So before we go to the kind of the bigger picture, I mean, I think the first thing is, what's the impact of AI directly in the CRM, given how critical it is to wealth firms today? And what is that going to mean for these other note takers that are outside of that, right? And it's interesting. Like, I think Wealthbox is a very interesting one. Like, they're not the only AI note taker CRM, but they're the first major note taker CRM that added AI. There's a number of newcomers that are AI first platforms that have CRMs or are AI based CRMs. For example, I met with the founders of Findash earlier today, which is one of those platforms, Spaces, which I believe they're going to rename it, but Spaces OS. And I've met with those guys before as well. They've been grinding out features and they have an AI CRM. But what's interesting is that Wealthbox is doing this integration with Fireflies, with a bunch of other of the existing note takers. And then they started building on their own. And now they've launched their own note taker. And so what does this really mean long term? And is that enough? I guess my question is, the CRM is where a lot of your data lives, and it's great that the note taker is there. But I still see your data living in a host of different places. And if these other note takers can access data from those places as well, do they still stand a shot against a Wealthbox with an AI note taker?
I mean, it sort of begs the question of what's wrong with CRMs now. And because ultimately that's will drive what will get developed next. What do you think is wrong with CRMs now?
So I think what's wrong with CRMs, I don't want to use the term what's wrong. I think where they need to evolve is they're not really, I mean, I think you said this earlier, right? They're not necessarily the system of record for everything. And so a lot of times they're still importing, copying, duplicating data from other sources. And unless they can truly perform those functions and they're the actual original home, I still think there's a fundamental issue with a CRM, right? So let's use this diagram that I put together earlier, of course, with the help of AI. But this is something that I've been thinking about, and I asked Claude to help me build a nice little pretty visual, which it did a great job of doing in like 3 minutes.
And so for the people who are now watching on YouTube, can you describe the diagram a little bit if they're
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. So yeah, what we're showing here is really I'm showing six boxes, which are a hypothetical example of a firm. They're using Wealth Box as a CRM, eMoney as financial planning. They have custodians with or a portfolio management platform. So they're connecting to Schwab. Maybe they're a Black Diamond or an Adipar or an Orion or something like that. They're using document management. So SharePoint Box, Dropbox, Google Docs, something like that. Then they're using calendar and email functions, right? And they might also have scheduling tools and other things. We have our CRM data living in Wealthbox, right? And that's going to be our contacts, our activities. We probably have some automated workflows. We are likely not keeping all of our documents in there. One of the sort of shortcomings of a lot of CRMs is they never really got on board with cloud-based documents. And so a lot of times you have to upload a document. So if a document is living, where you're making edits and things like that, you can't truly upload it to your CRM, or you're using something old, like you're putting static links to, OneDrive or SharePoint or something else. That doesn't work. There's obviously like box integration and Dropbox and things like that. Some of those things work a little bit better, but your documents are probably in one place. Your email is still somewhere else. Not all of this should live in your CRM or be forced into your CRM. And so the thing is, there's data in all of those. And the problem with CRMs today is that we force so much of it to live in the CRM, and that's not its real home. It's not its main function. People aren't using them oftentimes as the primary email, so they're choosing what emails to sync. It doesn't necessarily have all emails in it, so it's not a good source of searching through your emails. You still have your email client. You may not be putting all of your calendar information in there. Maybe it's just client meetings, not personal, things like that. Your documents are still going to be in disparate locations. So we're showing these 6 main things. And what we're showing in the center is an AI assistant or an AI front end. And so where I think we're going, and I don't think this is 2025, and it might not really be 2026, even though there are products that do this at this very moment, I think we're moving away from this AI in a CRM. I think this is a short-term solution. You really need AI across everything. And I commented on actually a post earlier today saying that like siloed data is one of the biggest challenges that we still can't overcome with AI. And I politely disagreed or presented my point of view, which is no, with MCP, Model Context Protocol, which for those who don't know, allows your data to communicate effectively with AI and have it in context and give that contextual understanding. With that, we now don't really have to force data into an application where it's not meant to live. Easily access your CRM activities, notes, things like that, access your emails, look at financial plans, and not just read this information, but also put items on your calendar, add or update contacts, create tasks, etc., all using natural language and AI. So I think we're shifting.
I'm going to take the opposite side of this, partially for entertainment value, but also because I actually believe it. So if you look at this diagram, and for those not watching, the AI assistant is the center and like all the data sources are around the sides of it. One thing you don't see is you don't see any of the next gen all-in-one tools here in the center, right? This is Claude, ChatGPT in the center, possibly Copilot, possibly Gemini if people are interested in Google. And then everything around it, all the data sources, I would say they're possibly just dumb pipes, right? They basically provide data in, but don't provide any logic. And so there's this distinction between a system of record and a system of action. So just for context, the system of record is like the CRM, basically where you have your definitive source of truth for any of your business processes. System of action is where you're actually taking action on top of those. And, typically a CRM has been able to play both of those roles because they have workflow automations and similar things on top of the core data. If really they just open up MCP to these AI applications, ultimately there's a real risk of becoming dumb pipes, and there's going to be very little friction moving from one CRM to another because there's no front end, right? It's effectively a database. And that is a very difficult situation. We talked about Wealthbox just raised 200 million. Ultimately, raising that amount of money, the anticipation is presumably to have a lot of enterprise value, a lot of lock-in, and be able to have forward revenue. And so ultimately, I think the ideal architecture going forward is that, first of all, no matter which of these blue boxes you log into, whether it's Wealthbox or eMoney or even your calendar, you basically have access to your other data sources immediately. But then those applications have amazing AI experiences built in that provide really compelling and unique experiences that are not possible on the more general AI clients. And ultimately, I think that is the story we've seen with Google, for example, right? Where Google traditionally was great at discovery and then started to do things in certain verticals. But ultimately, some verticals required some really specific functionality that Google could not replicate, did not want to replicate. And I imagine the same thing will happen with AI with these things, that there will be some things that AI chat living within these SaaS applications will actually end up being incredibly useful. And I think it'll be able to be interoperable. And I think that's the implicit thing here, is that the only mode of interoperability is through ChatGPT. I think that is a difficult situation to be in strategically. And so I think it's in everyone's interest to enable interoperability between these different systems of record, and then to also build systems of action on top of them. I think that's probably the right spot to be.
I mean, I don't disagree with that approach. I think this is a vision that shows that siloed data is not the problem it once was. Right. I'm not saying that the AI assistant is replacing these. I think they serve their core function, especially as a system of record. But it allows you to more easily get your work done and not worry so much about where the data is stored. I mean,
but is it inevitable that all of these firms are going to create MCPs? Is that like an inevitability? Because it's voluntary. I mean, if you have an open API, I guess it's somewhat voluntary.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's exactly mandatory. I mean, even now there's firms that resist APIs and integration, and they're a little more closed off. And I think that's fine if you're a market leader and you want to die slowly. But the reality is, opening things up seems to breed longevity. And if you're just good at what you do, you'll keep your clients. So I don't think closing the system is really the right long-term approach. And I've watched and been at companies where I've seen that happen over time, but it can make you money while you're dying slowly. So, who knows? It might make sense in some aspect, but I don't know. I just wanted to show this. I'll pull it off the screen now.
It's awesome.
I just wanted to show it. I think it's an interesting thought experiment to say, where are we going? And some of the technical limitations we used to have aren't here the same way. And so just because you have an AI note taker in your CRM doesn't suddenly unlock all your data, right? There's more data there, but realistically, AI that connects to everything is more valuable. Wealthbox specifically has a pretty deep integration network already. So if that AI can extend to those, that's something very different. But I'm not aware of it doing that now.
Yeah, I think so. We have our own Knapsack MCP client called Knapsack Studio. People can connect any MCP they want. There are 8,000 plus MCPs out there, and that includes a number of these tools that you had in your slide and a lot of other tools. What we learned from that process is it's actually really hard to actually get the data reliably and be able to manipulate the data. The MCP protocol puts a lot of burden on the application to do a great job. And so ultimately, just plugging it in isn't enough. You have to do a lot of work on top of it. So actually doing a really good job as a system of action, I think will be important, really important here. And I think on top of that, the question really will be when, and I think it's a when, not if, when Copilot, Gemini, and ChatGPT roll out being able to add any MCP in to their clients. And when that process of adding becomes a lot more user-friendly. Right now, I think you have to be a little bit technical. You have to get a URL. That URL, is a really long URL, has some security implications. I don't think the mainstream are doing it. I think it's like me and you and like 1% of people are actually doing that right now, right? I think when it gets more user-friendly and it's integrated into these mainstream tools, I think there will be a shift. I think there'll be a shift towards what you're talking about. I think then there will be a strategic question, a massive strategic question for these SaaS providers. How are they going to retain their users? And I think they're going to have to answer that question.
Well, and for anybody who is listening, that
no one's listening at this point because it's 30 minutes. I mean, who's still listening to us after 30 minutes?
I don't know. I mean, there's some people who struggle to fall asleep at night, and something like this could be perfect. But for anybody who's using Claude or ChatGPT, and I think you pretty much have to be on one of the paid plans, but they already have a lot of, they call it different things, but connectors. They already have a lot of them that are native that don't require the setup that Mark was just talking about. So if you're interested, and be mindful of security and policies if you're using it at work, but if you want to connect Claude or ChatGPT with Outlook or Box or a handful of other things, they already have just kind of a click to authenticate, no different than if you were to use Plaid or something like that, where you authenticate with your provider and now it has access. And they do have configuration controls so that you can then refine what it can do and when. So worth checking out if you're using those tools.
And there are aggregators for MCPs. So if you want to go to Gumloop or Zapier or Pipedream, those are 3 aggregators that have MCP endpoints. If there are additional ones that you don't see built in, you can go find them there. So, yeah, I mean, and I think obviously Knapsack has this as well. You're welcome to try that.
I was going to mention it for you.
Sponsored by Knapsack. We don't have sponsors on this program, by the way, and it's not a promo platform, but have to mention it.
It is relevant to this particular topic. But I will say, like, I've been experimenting with Claude, ChatGPT, and Knapsack, trying all of those tools, and I really enjoy Knapsack. Not saying that because I have to. Full disclosure, I am on the advisory board, and I'm friends with Mark. But I mean it. I've been using Knapsack and trying these other platforms and kind of seeing how they compare. And so it's very interesting to be able to plug in. I plugged in my CRM using a custom MCP. I plugged in some of my other tools, and now I'm able to get information on recent conversations using my note taker, getting information from that, my CRM. It's been interesting, the sort of prep and follow up that I can do very easily without some sort of custom setup.
Yeah, I think the question is whether the note taking is a proprietary data source or not, or whether it is actually just a data source that is going to be stored in the CRM or stored in your system of record, and there's literally no switching costs at all going from one note taker to another, right? This is the fundamental question. And I think it actually has transformed over the last 2 years from being a really interesting verticalized thing to a somewhat commoditized data source. Everyone's using Recall.ai APIs to roll out their own note taker. There are 3 or 4 note takers now on calls. People have multiple note takers for different purposes. And, there's no data lock-in. There's no data moat necessarily. So there might be functionality moat. And then that begs the question, what is the long-term functionality moat? Especially with that chart you mentioned. That's a really fascinating future to think about.
Yeah, I probably should have tossed like a data lake on there as well. I mean, if you put a data lake there and the AI sits on top of the data lake, doesn't necessarily have those pipes going to those other 6 boxes, that's very interesting, because then switching out providers becomes even less of an issue, right? You're not live connecting to like what's currently in this CRM, and I've switched CRMs, so now I don't have that data anymore, or I have to put that data somewhere else. But if it's in a data lake, you have it.
Yeah, you build your own system of record in some ways, right? So you don't have to be dependent on another one. Yeah, that's really interesting. We should definitely talk to people about. I want to talk to advisors who've actually set up a data lake. And what has worked well, what hasn't worked well. So if you're listening and you haven't fallen asleep yet and you are interested in actually coming on the program, then definitely let me know.
I'm going to do an invite right now to Judd and Kyle of Mile Marker.
Let's do it.
I'd love to have them on the show because their platform really heavily uses a data lake and lets firms build custom things on top. And I think it's an interesting platform to learn about. And they'd be good experts to have on.
I would love to have someone from a dyed-in-the-wool CRM that's been around for several years and one of the new all-in-one platforms on at the same time to basically talk about this new
Yikes.
world that we're entering into. That'd be awesome. You get out. Cage match. Cage match is very Silicon Valley.
I love it. Well,
All right, man.
on that
Well,
note,
thank you very much.
yeah, I think we've completed another episode.
We've actually done it. It's amazing.
Take care, all.
Okay, bye-bye, everyone.